From an obsession with monsters to a trip back in time to uncover the mysteries of Miro with his grandson, today we're talking about the best of Paris's autumn exhibitions. Starting with one of the most awaited shows of 2018, the remarkable painter Jean-Michel Basquiat is the subject of an exhibition at the Louis Vuitton Foundation. No single artist throughout history has been more influential to the establishment of the street-obsessed, logo-driven digital age in which we now live.
Not for sale. A young black painter's cry of revolt scrawled across a man's chest in a piece entitled "Obnoxious Liberals." One of Jean-Michel Basquiat's earliest works featured in a retrospective that sheds light on the wild child of the New York art scene.
His energy is amazing. His line is inimitable. His combination with words, collage and assemblage, nobody else did. It's all under his own aesthetic.
The exhibit displays his work in chronological order, from his early days when he was spraying graffiti on the streets of Brooklyn under the alias Samo, for same old shit, a frustration with the racism he faced in 1970s and 80s America. When he traded brick for canvas, he celebrated icons of black culture, like Cassius Clay and Miles Davis. Black bodies often painted with their organs on display.
He'd had an accident when he was a child, around 7 or 8. His mother bought him a book on anatomy because he had to be in the hospital for a long time. So in his work we see the inside of the body all the time.
Andy Warhol also gets a nod, represented here as a banana. He and Basquiat shared mutual appreciation for each other's work.
Warhol belonged to a time and place that was very much about America and its place in the world, while Basquiat is clearly universal. That is, I believe that anyone in the world can understand his art.
The violence of the brushstrokes, the seemingly haphazard juxtaposition of figures, colors, and words, everything about Basquiat's work screams contemporary art, but his inspiration often came from more classical sources.
He saw this drawing by Leonardo da Vinci and he transformed it into something totally new. The horse that so-called Death Rider is riding is not existing. It has fallen apart. It's the fundament of our society symbolized in this horse, which has fallen apart, which is missing.
Basquiat titled the piece "Riding with Death," a somber conclusion to the exhibit and to his life.
Playful, colourful, but with a darker meaning, the Catalan artist JOAN MIRO'S work is the subject of a major exhibition in Paris. Nearly 150 paintings, sculptures and drawings are on show at the Grand Palais until February. Although Miro hung out with the Paris-based surrealist, he developed a style that was all his own. His grandson provides some insight into the mysterious mind of the artist. Francois Weibo reports.
His style is immediately recognizable, but the meaning behind the multicolored signs and symbols remains a mystery. JOAN Miro was truly the painter of the bizarre, and it's on the Spanish island of Mallorca that the artist found his inspiration. In order to understand his art, it helps to have a guide, and who better than the artist's grandson who manages his estate. He remembers the terrace where Miro would take in the surrounding views.
Here he could reproduce everything that influenced him. The sky, the earth, day, night, the cosmos and the stars. It was like a connection with the universe.
In Palma, Miro developed a vocabulary that was uniquely his. Moons, stars, suns, strange esoteric symbols that only he could decipher.
I work through shocks. When I paint, there's always a feeling of shock in my mind.
He would regularly attend services at the Palma Cathedral, where he observed the stained glass windows. he drew inspiration from the clearly delineated blocks of primary colors, which would then find their way onto his canvases. Joan Miro also communed within his own home, in the secret room that served as a private chapel of sorts.
Miro came here around twice a week to rest his mind, to speak with his father, his mother, and Picasso. And whenever he had an important decision to make, he would sit here to find peace and to be in contact with those who have passed away, but who remain very dear to him.
Once he'd found his inspiration, he would paint prolifically. Until the end of his life, Miro painted around 10 hours a day. In his workshop lie dozens of brushes, paints, and empty canvases, as if, even from beyond the grave, he intended to carry on painting.
It's a big island in the Indian Ocean, a crossroads of civilizations and cultures. A new exhibition in Paris explores the art of Madagascar, giving us rare insights into the history of the island, daily life and sacred art. Let's head now to the K-Brunny Museum with Julia Kim.
At the crossroads of the world, Madagascar is a cultural melting pot. Over the centuries, paganism has fused with Islam and Christianity and melded with African, Asian, Indian and European influences, creating an art uniquely Madagascan.
There's a very strong overlap, and it's at times hard to differentiate between day-to-day objects and sacred objects. Artifacts which evoke the afterlife, the world of spirits, the world of our forebears.
In Madagascan culture, ancestors never die. Death is just a step that the living prepare for their whole lives by maintaining contact with the invisible world. At the heart of this exhibition, the belief that there's more to things than meets the eye, like the inside of this enchanted amulet.
I've displayed the things needed to make these charms. We have parts of birds' heads, their claws, bits of wood, pearls. You realize they're actually powerful objects. They transport us to another dimension, an invisible one. In the exhibition, we had to take into account the fact that the objects had another dimension or operated in a parallel dimension.
The idea of parallel dimensions has fed Madagascan imaginations for several centuries. An embodiment of the multifaceted island nation, PIERRE was born to a Chinese father and a Franco-Madagascan mother. A frustrated painter, he became a photographer late in life. He's captured Madagascar's grandiose landscapes and the timelessness of its inhabitants.
A photo like this one, for example, it was taken in 2008, but it looks like it was taken long before that. It's really timeless. I've lived there my whole life, and my first pictures from 40 years ago, when I look at them today, it looks like they were taken yesterday.
Magical, mystical, timeless, Madagascar assimilates eras, influences and migrations to strengthen its own identity.
My favourite thing is Monsters. It's the title of a debut graphic novel that's unlike any other. EMIL Ferris's award-winning creation is a sweeping murder mystery set in the cartoonist's native Chicago. To celebrate the release of the book in France, the American illustrator is the subject of an exhibit at the Martel Gallery in Paris. François Wibo has more.
In this small Parisian art gallery, EMIL Ferris is getting ready to sign some autographs. Her debut graphic novel, My Favorite Thing is Monsters, came out in France in August. Over 800 pages long, the book has been a hit in her native United States. Yet at first, the illustrator struggled to get recognition from her peers.
You know, graphic design came and said, no, you're not really one of us. And fine art came and said, no. And then comics came and said, oh, your family, we've been looking for you. And it was wonderful. And they embraced me.
Ferris tells the story of Karen, a little girl who's obsessed with monsters. She sets out to resolve the murder of her Jewish neighbor in 1960s Chicago, the very same environment the girl's creator grew up in. The novel reads both as her secret diary and as her sketchbook.
Karen is in me. I was that strange little girl who loved horror movies and didn't feel like she was going to be happy growing up to be a woman and wanted to grow up to be a monster. I was a weirdo, as a lot of us are, but what I came to realize is that we're all weirdos and that we're all monsters.
The densely packed lines etched with a ballpoint pen have become her trademark, a style she adopted after her arm became paralyzed when she was 14.
I don't have the same capacity with line that I once did, so now I have to build up form with many marks, which was essentially what I did as a child.
FERRIS's success came very suddenly, and this is the first exhibit dedicated to her work.
We're all weirdos and monsters, I like it. And finally, for the first time in France, works from Picasso's blue and pink periods are being shown at Paris's Musée d'Orsay, and we're going to leave you with that. Remember our website, we're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.